Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond, Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which is a fascinating area for I think many people. It's on the subject of graphic justice. That's the title of the book. It's got a subtitle, Intersections of Comics and Law. Now we all like comics, so it immediately got my attention. The book's been actually edited by Thomas Giddens, and it comes from Routledge, which is an Informer group title, part of the Taylor and Francis group. And this is actually what's called a GlassHouse Book, from the time when they were actually at the GlassHouse in London, all those years ago now actually. Now we've given it a title. Elizabeth and I talked about this book, as it's an interesting subject area for us in terms of intellectual property as much as anything else, and we gave it the title An Effective Exploration of the Law Relating to Comics and Graphic Fiction. Now let's have a look at the book. It's a very small one, hardback. You can see there, appalling picture on the front. There is the side and then spine, and then there's the back, and you can see the details. Okay, I will point out, of course, that this is an American judge, judging by the robe he is wearing. But more of that later. Let's have a look at the book. We've got an interesting little index at the back, which you can see there. Very much part of the Routledge style. Nice, lots of photographs and pictures, which will be great fun. There are actually nice sort of footnotes too, which I found very helpful. Again, you can see even more. A lot of these images, frankly, are quite disturbing to some people. But there again, the book is trying to look very carefully at what is actually happening within this particular industry. And you see all the footnoting. There's no paragraph numbering. The index itself deals specifically with page numbering. And what you do have at the end of each chapter is you have a bibliography which is listed at the end of the chapter, and there are subheadings in the chapters. Now at the front you've got some standard spiel, blurb if you like, about what the book's about, the intersection of law and contemporary. In fact, what they say is that the intersections of law and contemporary culture are vital. Then it goes on to justify the book. This is a nice dedication there to Helen. Then you've got the parts of the actual book itself, the names of the contributors, because been edited by Thomas Giddens, and of course a lot of people who've contributed. There are acknowledgements for all of the various pictures and things. This is a list of the contributors, a very wide range of people from all over the place. Very, very useful. There we go. I should think they had a lovely time looking at all the comics. That is the start of the book, the introduction by Giddens, and then it sort of runs on from there, and it's effectively text all the way through. The book runs to 250 odd pages. I found it very interesting. As I said, I didn't really like the cover very much, and I don't like a lot, frankly, of the artwork that is produced, but just call me old-fashioned if you wish to. The fact is, this is an important area of law for a lot of reasons. So what do we say about it? This. What do comics have to do with the law? I could make a couple of remarks there about comics and the law, but I won't. What we're talking about, and what does the law have to do with comics? Quite a lot, actually. Quite a lot if you come to think about it, because if you have occasion to read this book, it'll probably make you think that it has more than you originally thought. It certainly did in our case. Comics, graphic fiction, panels, often serialized, usually feature larger-than-life characters engaged in conflicts between good and evil, in which mortals, ethics and the law are key players. Like any communications medium, comics can be used for good or ill, as opinion formers for educative or propaganda purposes. They are nothing if not influential, even instructive. Of course, when I was growing up in the 50s, a lot of my contemporaries as children were not allowed to have comics because their parents thought they were actually an evil influence. So they come round to my house to read the comics. So you get some idea of the changing views over the last last 5 decades. So if you are of a tender disposition, however, or if you tend to judge a book by its cover, you may not get beyond the cover of this book. Dark and sinister, its menacing Kafkaesque graphic image of a Judge Dredd-like member of the judiciary as the personification of evil, not in England we hope, it's probably more appropriate for that well-known book on bad judges, which we reviewed elsewhere. And in fact, some of the judges of ancient proportions do come across as looking rather imperious and terrifying, which of course is what it's meant to be about in the past. Today we look at things slightly differently, we hope. But we digress. Actually, the book is scholarly, thoughtful, and because of the subject matter, really quite fascinating. It's published by Routledge, as I said, and it deals, as the subtitle indicates, with the intersections of comics and law, where they actually come to meet. Under the editorship of Thomas Giddens from St Mary's University, and himself a bit of a cartoonist, it brings together the learned commentary, observations, and carefully footnoted research of 16 international contributors. And as I've said, I found that they've come from a wide range of universities, and they are clearly extremely knowledgeable in this area of activity. In the words of the editorial team, the book brings comics and graphic fiction into the range of critical resources available to the academic study of law, and is apparently the first book to do so. Almost undoubtedly, it's the first book to present such an amazingly wide spectrum of legal issues that emerge from or are influenced by graphic fiction. These include not just copyright law, of course, but legal ethics, education, and social and regulatory issues, for example in biomedicine, as well as such areas as human rights abuses and much more. The aim of this volume, says the author, or rather the editor, is to demonstrate and showcase the diverse potential of comics and graphic fiction to enrich the various discourses of law, justice and legal studies. The book's overall objective then is to ensure that legal studies embrace the medium of comics as a real and significant critical resource and object. And as I said earlier about the example of when I was a child, you can stop people looking at the comics, but they're still going to look at them actually, and they're still going to be influenced. So you've then got to think what effect that will have as well, apart from any rights in terms of intellectual property and so forth. Let me conclude by saying, as it explores the various interfaces, that's a lovely word they use, that graphic fiction presents between legal studies and popular culture, this book will be of interest, I think, to a wide range of academics and graduate students. And I know it's reading comics, but it will be of interest, not only in the law, but in criminology, sociology and related studies, or indeed anyone with a serious interest in comics as a culturally influential phenomenon, which of course they are. Remember, even in Europe, they're incredible. They're not quite the same as these in some instances. They're incredibly popular. And do remember one thing. A comic is about pictures. That means that you can actually cross the language frontier. So they are important. The publication date is cited at 2015. Let's have a quick look at the book again. Picture of Judge Dredd on the front, or whoever. Then the spine in the back. A bit of information about Thomas Giddens at the bottom there. Just opening it in the middle. Law and the Machine. Fluid and Mechanical Selfhood in the Ghost in the Shell. It's actually written by the editor, that one. Chapter 6. You can see again on the previous chapter you've got this huge amount of bibliographical detail, and I do think a lot of work has been put into this, and I believe it's of a great benefit to give us some idea of in fact where we are going with this subject matter. There is the index at the back again, as you can see. It certainly looks at a whole range. It's got, for instance, Tintin in the Congo is mentioned, because there are political ramifications with some of the works that have been produced. And these are the contributors. Let me just show you their names again. There and there. Large number of people involved. Thank you to all concerned. I thought it was an excellent book. Interesting. Different from what we normally review, but nevertheless a great contribution to interesting areas of law. Thank you all. Bye-bye.